Good day, friends. I'm Kerry Dillinger. This is Bible Class Topics, and we're going to take a look at 2 Corinthians 4, verses 16 through 18, and we want to talk about growing old by grace. By the end of the lesson, I hope you can understand why we did not name this lesson Growing Old Gracefully, or even Growing Old with Grace. Growing old by grace. Paul the Apostle wrote, "So we do not lose heart, though our outer self is wasting away. Our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal." Old age is something that our society tries to avoid. Millions, if not billions of dollars are spent on cosmetics, plastic surgery, diet pills, lipo-suctions, creams, lotions, hair colors, etc., etc. We seem to think we aren't beautiful unless we're young. That's not how God thinks. That's not true with God. In fact, we become more beautiful with age to God. In this lesson, we want to discuss these topics. We will learn God blesses the elderly. God cares for the aged. God values the mature. God gives the older generation instructions, and He teaches the younger generation to respect the older generation. Let's dive right in. Old age is a blessing from God. Solomon said, "Silver hair is a crown of glory if we, you, me, walk in righteousness." Let me read it from the ESV, Proverbs 16, verse 31. "Gray hair is a crown of glory. It is gained in a righteous life." Later, in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 29, we learn there is glory and splendor in our old age. "The glory of young men is their strength," Solomon says, "but the splendor of old men is their gray hair." Apparently, Solomon was looking forward to his old age. The graying of one's hair is often equated with wisdom and experience that only time can bring. It seems that Solomon is giving older people the respect and recognition that they do deserve. Moses wrote that the aged are to be honored. In Leviticus 19, verse 32, "You shall stand up before the gray head and honor the face of an old man, and you shall fear your God. I am the Lord." Here Moses is connecting the honor given to the old with a healthy respect for God. To stand in the presence of an older man is like standing in the presence of God. Both God and the old deserve our honor and our respect. Old age is a blessing from God. God cares for the aged. Let's turn to Isaiah, the prophet, chapter 46, and look at 2 verses, 3 and 4. "Listen to me, O house of Jacob, all the remnant of the house of Israel, who have been born by me from before your birth, carried from the womb, even to your old age. I am He, and to gray hairs I will carry you. I have made, and I will bear, and I will carry, and will save." This passage speaks to those who are well worn with age. Arthritis has set in, bones have broken and gotten weak, health diminishes to the point that one wonders how they're going to make the next day. God says He'll carry you. He made you, and He will bear you through. And when it's over, That is, when it's over in this life here on earth, he'll still be there, and he will deliver you. What a comfort that brings. However, there is fear among the old of being forsaken or discarded with age. This is nothing new in our time, in our century. Listen to the psalmist in chapter 71, verse 9. And by the way, this is David speaking. Do not cast me off in the time of my old age. Forsake me not when my strength is spent. Perhaps it's for good reason when we see how the elderly are often treated. This fear among the aged of being forsaken. Our strength does fail. Our health decreases with age. It's a time in life when we need God more than we ever needed God before. If we look at the entire chapter of Psalm 71, and I'll leave that to you, we see David's cry for God's support in his old age. David wanted God's support to declare God to the younger generation in his old age. Let's read one more verse from Psalm 71, verse 18. David said, "So even to old age and gray hairs, O God, do not forsake me until I proclaim your might to another generation, your power to all those who come." David reminds the elderly that it's not a time to quit, it's a time to carry on. And listen to what he said the aged should carry on doing. Proclaim your might to another generation. That brings two passages to mind. First, Matthew 11:28, when Jesus said, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest." And then 2 Corinthians 4:16 and 18, which we've already read in the preamble to this lesson. There's value in age to God. In Psalm 92, verses 13 through 15, we hear the psalmist say, "They are planted in the house of the Lord. They flourish in the courts of our God. They still bear fruit in old age. They are ever full of sap and green to declare that the Lord is upright. He is my rock, and there's no unrighteousness in him." The psalmist says the old will still bear fruit in old age. Why? Because they're well rooted in God's Word. These folks have been around the block a few times. They are perhaps the best qualified people to declare God's Word because they live it for so long. Of all the people on earth, the aged Christians, then, are the most like God. The aging Christian's value does not decrease with the graying of hair. Instead, it increases. They are praying men and women who have spent countless hours in the Scriptures and teaching others. They love the Lord. They know God because they walk with God in His ways. They submit to God's will and always have. Old Christians are a blessing to have in our midst. God gives instructions to the older generation. Let's start with the Apostle Paul in Titus 2, verses 2 and 3. "But as for you, teach what accords with sound doctrine." He's talking to the young preacher Titus here. Teach what accords with sound doctrine. Older men are to be sober-minded, dignified, self-controlled, sound in faith, in love, and in steadfastness. Older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine. They are to teach what is good. If we look up some of these words in an expository dictionary, such as Vine's, we find out that the men are to be sober, which means they're to be sound-minded. They're to be under control, under their own self-control. They're to be reverent, or as one version says, grave. And that's a word that means suited to sacred character. When it comes to spiritual things, They're to be serious, honorable, and honest. The old King James says men are to be temperate. Temperate means to be free from the influence of intoxicants, and metaphorically it can be used in association with being on guard or being watchful. And men in the faith are to be sound. Sound in the faith, sound in love, and sound in patience. When we hear the word sound in the New Testament, it means to be healthy, i.e., true or safe. Meanwhile, the women are also to be reverent. Reverent in behavior has become holiness, the King James says. And of course, we've already defined that word, suited to a sacred character. They're not to be slanderers, which means they don't accuse falsely, where the reference is to those who are given to finding fault with the demeanor and conduct of others and spreading their innuendos and criticisms in the church. That's what Vine says in his expository dictionary. Let me read it again. The reference is to those who are given to finding fault with the demeanor and conduct of others and spreading their innuendos and criticisms in the church. Women are not to do that. The older women are to express and show that this is not a way to be. Not given to much wine. Do you understand that this passage is not talking exclusively about alcoholic wine? Excessive drinking, even of non-inebriating drinks, was a vice prevalent in the days of Paul the Apostle. And it corresponds to gluttony, also common in his day, the excessive use of food. So it's not just getting drunk that the apostle is warning them about. It's overindulgence in anything connected to our daily lives, specifically excessive drinking. You say, well, you can't drink too much water. Well, yes, you can. The doctor may tell you to drink so-and-so amount of water during the day, but are you going to try to double that, or triple that, or quadruple that? Why, no, you're not, because that won't be healthy. Not given to much wine, Paul tells Titus to teach the older women, and he encourages these older women to be teachers of good things. The Bible dictionary says a teacher of what is good. Before we leave, we need to say a word or two to the younger folks in the audience. And the passage almost every preacher turns to for this is Ecclesiastes 12, 1 through 7. The preacher said, "Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return after the rain, in the day when the keepers of the house tremble, and the strong men are bent, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those who look through the windows are dimmed, and the doors on the street are shut, when the sound of the grinding is low, and one rises up at the sound of a bird, and all the daughters of song are brought low, they are afraid also of what is high, and terrors are in the way. The almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper drags itself along, and desire fails, because man is going to his eternal home. And the mourners go about the streets before the silver cord is snapped, or the golden bowl is broken, or the pitcher is shattered at the fountain, or the wheel is broken at the cistern, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and then the spirit returns to God who gave it. Things, as you know them, will continually change, and your attitude toward life will continually change. As our health diminishes, as our hearing fades, as our eyesight blurs, we'll know that our end is near, and you know and I know that we as Christians will return to God who gave us our youth. So what do we say to the young among us here? Don't burn any bridges with God. You will see him again. In 1 Timothy 5, 1 through 3, we are warned not to rebuke an older man, but exhort him as a father or mother, and give widows the honor they deserve. I'll read it from the ESV. Do not rebuke an older man, but encourage him as you would a father. Younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, younger women as sisters, in all purity, and honor widows who are truly widows. All of us have probably been taught in our youth to respect our elders, and of course, this is biblical teaching. Speaking of our elders, under the organization of the church, each congregation is to be led by elders. Listen to what Peter says in 1 Peter 5:5 concerning the elders of the church. Likewise, you who are younger, be subject to the elders. Clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility toward one another, for God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. The elders of the church are called the elders of the church, or the bishops, or the shepherds, because they are the mature, and the younger are to submit to them. The younger are to submit to the older. And why? Let's dig back into that verse one more time. He says, clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility toward one another. The reason the younger are to submit to the elder, it's a matter of humility. True beauty then comes with age. God has always valued spiritual beauty, not physical beauty. Being old is a blessing and an asset in the Lord's work. Being old is an asset in the Lord's work. Thank you for studying with me today. I hope this lesson has been helpful, especially to those of us that are in our waning years. I hope you can be back with me soon to study another lesson from Bible class topics. Our hats off to the folks over at the Battle Creek Church of Christ in the Black Hills of South Dakota. I found this outline to this lesson on their website. I'll put a link to it in the description below. And our photo today comes from Wikimedia Commons. We hope to see you soon. Until then, may God bless.